A struggling single dad rents a room to a college girl, never knowing she's a billionaire's daughter, a heartwarming romance of love, family, and secrets. The house was too quiet once Lily went to bed. Jack Turner sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of envelopes in front of him. The pale yellow light above flickered now and then, making the shadows jump against the walls. The refrigerator hummed softly. The clock on the wall ticked loud, louder than it should. It was the kind of silence that pressed on his chest, the kind that reminded him he was the only adult in this house, the only one carrying the weight. He leaned back in the chair and rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand. His body ached from the double shifts, mornings at the auto shop, nights at the warehouse moving boxes until his back screamed. He was 32 but felt closer to 50 most days. The envelopes stared back at him like enemies. Overdue, past due, final notice, electricity, mortgage, groceries had been paid for last week with the last of his savings. He had stretched ground beef into 3 different dinners, packed peanut butter sandwiches into Lily's lunchbox, and told her spaghetti with ketchup counted as a special meal. He wasn't ashamed of working hard. What gnawed at him was the fear that one day the numbers just wouldn't work anymore, fear that he wouldn't be enough for his daughter. His eyes drifted down the hallway where a soft glow spilled from under Lily's bedroom door. She always wanted the nightlight on, the little one shaped like a smiling star. She was 8 years old, bright-eyed, and so full of life that she lit up rooms without even trying. She deserved the world. All he could give her was the small house, his love, and his tired hands. Jack sighed and looked toward the narrow door at the end of the hall. The spare room. For walls, a window that let in a draft, a small closet, and a mattress he had picked up from a thrift store years ago. He had thought of renting it before, but every time the idea came, he pushed it away. The thought of letting a stranger into his home, round his little girl lip, made him uneasy. But tonight, staring at the pile of bills, the unease was starting to look smaller than the reality he faced. He opened his old laptop. The screen flickered, slow to start. He clicked through to the local classifieds and began to type, room for rent, small, clean, private bathroom, quiet neighborhood, must be respectful, no smoking, no parties. He stared at the words for a long time before hitting post. His stomach twisted. He hated this, but he also knew he couldn't carry this alone anymore. 2 days later, the knock came. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind where the sun warmed the porch but the breeze carried a chill. Jack was in the middle of fixing the loose leg on the coffee table when Lily's voice rang out. "Daddy, someone's here." She bolted to the door before he could even stand up. "Lily, wait," he called, setting down the screwdriver. By the time he reached her, the door was wide open. On the porch stood a young woman, early 20s. Maybe. She wore jeans, a faded hoodie, and sneakers that had clearly walked a long way. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her bag-of-worn leather satchel hung heavy from her shoulder. "Hi," she said softly, her voice polite but uncertain. "I saw the ad about the room." Yeah," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Come on in." The girl stepped inside, glancing round. Lily beamed up at her. "Are you gonna live here?" The young woman smiled down at her. "Maybe, if your dad says it's okay." "What's your name?" Lily asked. "Sarah," she replied gently. "And you must be Lily." Lily nodded proudly. "Yep, I'm 8. And I drew that." She pointed to the crayon picture taped in the fridge, a lopsided drawing of a house with a big sun over it. Sarah walked over and leaned closer. "That's beautiful," she said softly. "Looks like a happy home." Jack cleared his throat. "You want to see the room?" Sarah turned, nodding quickly. "Yes, please." The room wasn't much. The mattress had a quilt on it, clean but faded. The window looked out over the backyard, where an old swing creaked gently in the wind. Sarah stood in the doorway for a moment, her bag still slung over her shoulder. She looked round with careful eyes. "It's perfect," Sarah said quickly. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You haven't even seen it yet." "I don't need to," she said, her gaze still on the small window. "It feels right." Lily tugged at Jack's sleeve. "Daddy, I like her." Jack looked from his daughter to the young woman. Sarah's smile was small, but it was genuine, and something in her eyes, something Jack couldn't place, told him she wasn't just here for a roof. Back in the kitchen, Jack poured her a glass of water. He asked the usual questions: where she studied, whether she had a job, if she could pay rent on time. Sarah answered politely, but always briefly, like she was careful. She said she was in her 2nd year of college, studying English. She said she had part-time work on campus. She said paying rent wouldn't be a problem. Jack nodded, though he noticed her clothes were simple. her shoes worn. She didn't look like someone with extra cash, but her eyes calm, steady, kind made him want to believe her. You'll have to be okay with Lily around. Oh yes, Sarah said softly. She turned to Lily. Do you like having a new friend around? Lily grinned. Yes. Will you read me stories? Sarah laughed lightly. If your dad says it's okay. Jack rubbed the back of his neck. Something about the way Sarah spoke, the way she moved it was quiet, almost careful, like she'd lived around noise and wanted nothing more than peace. All right. He finally said, if you're serious, the room's yours. Sarah's shoulders relaxed, like she had been holding her breath. Thank you. You won't regret it. That night, after Sarah left to gather her things, Jack tucked Lily into bed. She hugged her stuffed rabbit, its ears worn thin from years of love. Daddy? She whispered as he pulled the blanket over her. Do you think she's lonely? Jack frowned. Why do you ask that, kiddo? She looked like she wanted a hug. Jack swallowed the lump in his throat. Sometimes Lily saw things he didn't. Sometimes she cut right to the truth with her little heart. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep, baby girl. But when he turned off the light and stepped into the hall, her words stuck with him. He sat back down at the kitchen table, staring at the spare glass of water he had poured for Sarah but she hadn't touched. He thought about her smile, about the way she had looked at Lily's drawing, about the strange mix of sadness and hope in her eyes. He didn't know who Sarah really was, didn't know why she wanted his small, creaky house when there were plenty of rooms in town, but he knew one thing. The room wasn't the only empty thing in this house. So was his heart, and somehow, in that brief meeting, Sarah had touched both. The next afternoon, Sarah returned with her bag. It wasn't much, just the same worn satchel and a small duffel bag that looked light enough for a child to carry. No boxes, no piles of clothes, no furniture. Jack noticed right away, most renters showed up with a truck or at least a couple of suitcases. Sarah didn't. She stood on the porch, the wind tugging at the loose strands of her hair. Looking almost shy, Jack pushed the door open wider. Come on in, he said. Thank you, she replied softly, stepping past him. Lily darted out of the hallway the second she spotted her. You came back. Sarah laughed lightly. I told you I would. Lily grabbed her hand without hesitation and pulled her toward the hallway. Come see, I put flowers in your room. Jack frowned, following them. Sure enough, when Sarah stepped into the spare room, the little bedside table now held a small plastic cup filled with dandelions and wild violet treasures Lily had plucked from the yard that morning. Sarah's hand went to her mouth. Oh, she whispered. She bent down and looked at Lily. That's the sweetest gift I've ever gotten. Lily's eyes shone. Really? Really? Sarah said, her voice soft but steady. Jack leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. He didn't miss the way Sarah looked at the tiny room again, not like it was plain, but like it was home. That unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. By evening, Sarah had unpacked her few things, a stack of well-worn paperbacks, some notebooks, 2 sets of clothes folded neatly in the drawer. That was it. Jack couldn't help himself. That all you got? Sarah turned, caught off guard. I Travelite, HM. He didn't press, but he noticed her shoulders stiffen like she was used to being questioned. Dinner was simple, macaroni and cheese, with canned green beans on the side. Jack didn't have time or money for fancy meals, but Lily never complained. Tonight, though, she was extra excited because Sarah sat across the table. Sarah, Lily said between bites. What's your favorite food? Sarah thought for a moment. Grilled cheese, with tomato soup. Lily giggled. That's Daddy's favorite too. Jack cleared his throat, pretending not to notice. It's easy to make. Sarah smiled faintly. Sometimes the easy things are the best. The conversation drifted to school, Lily talking about her spelling test, Sarah asking questions with genuine interest. Jack listened quietly, studying Sarah when she wasn't looking. She didn't just ask polite questions. She leaned in, she laughed softly at Lily's jokes. She made his daughter feel like the most important person in the world. That did something to him, something he wasn't ready to face. Later, while Jack washed the dishes, he overheard Sarah reading to Lily in the living room. Her voice carried softly through the walls, gentle but full of life as she gave each character a different tone. Lily's giggles rang out, warm and unguarded. Jack paused, a plate in his hand. He couldn't remember the last time the house had sounded like that, like family. That night, after Lily was asleep, Jack found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table with her notebook open. She looked up quickly, almost guilty. Studying? He asked. She nodded. Trying to, at least. He poured himself a cup of coffee. What are you studying for? English. She replied. Literature. Jack raised a brow. That's a lot of books to read. I don't mind, Sarah said softly. She traced the edge of her notebook with her finger. Books don't judge. They just tell you a story and let you live in it. Jack tilted his head, watching her. There it was again, that strange mix of wisdom and sadness in her eyes, like she had lived more than most her age. Most kids your age want roommates at party, he said finally. I don't, Sarah replied quickly, too quickly. Jack let it drop. The first week passed slowly, with Sarah settling into the rhythms of the house. She was quiet, careful not to take up space, always offering to help with chores. At first Jack refused, pride pushing him to do everything himself. But then he came home one evening to find the laundry folded neatly, Lily's homework done, and dinner warming on the stove. You didn't have to do this, he said gruffly. Sarah shrugged. I wanted to. Her answer left him with no words. Lily, meanwhile, had attached herself to Sarah like glue. She followed her around, asked her to braid her hair, begged her for stories, and showed her every crayon drawing she made. One night, as Sarah tucked Lily into bed, the little girl asked a question that made Sarah's face still. Do you have a daddy too? Sarah froze. Her eyes flickered toward the nightlight, then back to Lily. Yes, she whispered finally, but he's very busy. Lily yawned and hugged her rabbit. My daddy's busy too, but he always comes back. Sarah swallowed hard. She kissed Lily's forehead and whispered goodnight. When she closed the door, she leaned against it for a long moment, her chest tight. Jack saw her in the hallway, her face pale in the glow of the nightlight. She caught his gaze, then quickly looked away. It was near midnight when Jack passed by the kitchen and noticed Sarah on the phone. Her voice was hushed, urgent, though he couldn't make out the words. Yes. I'm fine, please don't. No. Not now, I need to do this on my own. Silence. Then, I said no. I'll call you when I'm ready. The line clicked off. When she turned, she jumped slightly to see Jack in the doorway. Couldn't sleep? He asked, his tone casual though his eyes searched hers. Sarah forced a small smile. Yeah, just a late call. Jack nodded slowly, but in his gut, he knew there was more to Sarah than she was letting on. That night, lying awake in his bed, Jack stared at the ceiling. A stranger lived under his roof now. A stranger who was good with his daughter. A stranger who laughed like she hadn't in a long time. A stranger who hid something every time her phone rang. Jack didn't know whether to trust her or not, but when he thought about the way Lily had hugged Sarah that evening, he knew one thing. He couldn't push her out now, not when his daughter had already let her in. And so the days went on. 3 people under one roof. A single dad with his walls built high, a little girl with her heart wide open, and a young woman with secrets she wasn't ready to tell. Strangers, and yet somehow not strangers at all. Jack Turner had never been good at letting people help him. It wasn't pride exactly, at least. That's what he told himself. It was survival. When his wife left, when Lily was still small enough to cry through the night, he'd learned fast that nobody was coming to save him. No one was going to step in and carry the load. If he didn't figure it out, Lily would go without. So he became the kind of man who did everything himself, whether it nearly broke him or not. Now, with Sarah under his roof, that part of him stirred uneasily. She was careful, never overstepping, never demanding, but she was also there in ways Jack hadn't expected, folding laundry before he got to it, making sure Lily ate a real snack after school instead of just crackers, offering to pick up groceries when she went out. Little things, small things, things that made the house feel lighter. And that scared him. One Wednesday evening, Jack came home late from the warehouse, his back aching from a 12-hour shift. He expected the house to be quiet, Lily asleep, Sarah in her room. Instead, he walked into the sound of laughter. He paused in the doorway of the living room. Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, her hair falling loose from its ponytail. Lily sat beside her, both of them bent over the old coffee table, crayons scattered everywhere. Okay, your turn, Sarah said, handing Lily a purple crayon. Lily giggled and started drawing quickly, her tongue poking out in concentration. When she lifted the paper, Jack saw a lopsided stick figure with messy hair holding hands with a smaller stick figure. That's you and me, Lily explained proudly. Sarah smiled, her eyes soft. I love it. Jack cleared his throat. Both of them looked up, startled. Daddy. Lily jumped up and ran to him. Look what we made. Jack glanced at the paper, then at Sarah. That's nice, he muttered, setting down his lunchbox. Sarah gave a polite smile and began gathering the crayons. We were just passing time. You didn't have to, Jack said, his voice sharper than he meant. Her smile faltered. I know. I wanted to. Jack nodded stiffly and went to the kitchen. He busied himself with pouring water, his jaw tight. Behind him, he heard Lily say, Don't worry, Sarah. Daddy's just tired. The words pierced him more than he wanted to admit. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Jack found Sarah at the sink washing the dinner plates. You don't have to do that, he said. She didn't turn. I don't mind. Jack leaned against the doorway. You're not here to be a babysitter or a housekeeper. Sarah finally looked at him, her eyes calm but firm. I know. I just like helping. Jack shook his head. It's not your responsibility. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Sarah dried her hands and said quietly, maybe I just like feeling needed. That stopped him. He opened his mouth to respond but closed it again. She slipped past him, heading for her room. The next day, Jack tried to shake it off at work, but her words clung to him. Maybe I just like feeling needed. Why would a young woman with her whole life ahead of her say something like that? Most people her age were running away from responsibility, not toward it. That night, Lily had trouble with her math homework. Jack sat down at the table with her, tired but determined. He had always been the one to help her, even when the numbers made his head spin. But before he could even pick up the pencil, Sarah slid into the chair beside Lily. Let's do it together, she said gently. Lily brightened instantly. Okay. Jack watched, arms crossed, as Sarah patiently explained the problems, breaking them down in ways Lily understood. Lily laughed when she finally got the answer right. Jack should have felt relieved. Instead, something twisted in his chest. When Lily ran off to show her drawing to the fridge again, Jack spoke low. You don't have to take over, you know. Sarah blinked at him. I wasn't taking over. I was helping. She's my daughter, Jack said flatly. Sarah's expression softened. I know. But the way she said it, gentle, not defensive, made him feel worse. That weekend, Lily begged Sarah to bake cookies with her. The kitchen turned into a mess of flour and sugar, laughter echoing through the house. Jack walked in just as Lily smeared chocolate on her nose, both of them giggling uncontrollably. Sarah looked up, her face flushed from the oven's heat, her eyes bright. For a moment, Jack saw something he hadn't seen in his family, and it scared the life out of him. He muttered something about needing air and stepped outside. On the porch, he sat heavily on the steps, his hands running over his face. He told himself it wasn't about Sarah, it was about Lily. He couldn't let his daughter get too attached to someone who might leave. He couldn't let her heart break again. The door creaked behind him. Sarah stepped out, holding the glasses of lemonade. She set one beside him and sat on the step, leaving space between them. You don't have to worry, she said quietly, staring out at the yard. About what? Jack asked, though he knew. About me being here. I'm not trying to replace anyone. Jack exhaled slowly. Kids get attached easy. I know, Sarah said. That's why I'm careful. He studied her face in the fading light. She looked sincere, too sincere, and yet, in her eyes, he caught it again, that flicker of loneliness she tried so hard to hide. You've got secrets, he said before he could stop himself. Sarah's head turned sharply. What? You've got this. Look, like you're running from something. Her lips parted, but no words came. Then she stood quickly. I should check on the cookies. She slipped inside, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts. That night, when Jack tucked Lily in, she looked up at him sleepily. Daddy? Yeah. Baby girl, do you like Sarah? Jack hesitated. She's nice. She makes the house happy, Lily murmured, her eyes closing. Jack sat there in the dim glow of the nightlight, his chest heavy. His daughter wasn't wrong. Sarah did make the house happy, but happiness was dangerous. Happiness made you forget how easily things could be taken away. So Jack lay awake long after Lily slept, staring at the ceiling, caught between his fear and the slow, undeniable truth that Sarah was no longer just a stranger in his house. She was becoming something more, and that terrified him. The mornings in the Turner house had always been rushed. Jack would pack Lily's lunch in a hurry, scramble to find his work boots, and gulp coffee like medicine before running out the door. But now, mornings felt different. Sarah was there. It wasn't anything she did exactly, at least. Nothing big, but she was the kind of person who made chaos quieter. She had a way of pouring cereal without spilling half the box, of reminding Lily to grab her homework folder before she forgot it, of keeping the kitchen from turning into a war zone before 8 o'clock. Jack noticed. Even if he didn't say anything, one Friday, he came into the kitchen to find Lily already dressed, her hair neatly braided. Sarah was standing at the counter, tying off a lunch bag with careful hands. You made her lunch? Jack asked, setting down his thermos. Sarah glanced up quickly, almost guilty. Yes. I thought it might help. Jack grunted. That's my job. Lily piped up before Sarah could answer, but she cut my sandwich into hearts. Daddy. She held it up proudly. The peanut butter and jelly split into little shapes. Jack's chest tightened. He forced a small smile for Lily's sake, but his eyes lingered on Sarah. She ducked her head, pretending to wipe the counter. That afternoon, Jack got a call at the shop. Lily had forgotten her gym shoes at home. Can you bring them? The school secretary asked. He sighed, glancing at the line of cars waiting for service. I can't get away right now. But when he called Sarah, she answered on the second ring. I'll take care of it, she said quickly. An hour later, she showed up at the school. Lily spotted her in the office and squealed, running straight into her arms. Sarah knelt down and slipped the shoes on Lily's feet like it was the most natural thing in the world. From the hallway, one of the teachers raised an eyebrow. New roommate? Sarah smiled politely, something like that. When she left, she walked past the parking lot where a sleek black sedan idled by the curb. Her steps slowed. The tinted window rolled down just enough for a man in a suit to look at her. Miss Sarah, he said. Your father has been asking. She stiffened. Not here. The man hesitated. At least let me. I said not here. She snapped softly. Then, catching herself, she lowered her voice. Please. Just go. The man gave a tight nod and the car pulled away. Sarah stood there for a moment, her hand clutching her bag, her heart racing. She didn't notice Jack's old pickup rumble past the corner just then. He caught only a glimpse of shiny car leaving the school. Sarah standing alone, her expression unreadable. His brow furrowed. That evening, Jack found Sarah in the kitchen putting away groceries. He frowned when he saw the bag's fresh fruit, good cuts of meat, even a carton of orange juice that wasn't the cheap brand he usually bought. You didn't need to do this, he said, pulling out a receipt. His eyes widened at the total. Sarah turned quickly, reaching for the paper. I'll pay you back. Don't, Jack interrupted. This is too much. It's groceries, Sarah said softly, for all of us. On what money? He asked bluntly. Her lips parted, but no words came. She set the milk down carefully, her eyes lowering. I have a card. Jack narrowed his gaze. A student card doesn't buy this. Sarah's shoulders stiffened for a heartbeat. He thought she'd argue, but instead, she forced a smile. It's fine, Jack. Don't worry. And with that, she slipped out of the kitchen, leaving him staring at the neat rows of groceries he couldn't afford. Over the next few days, Jack couldn't shake it. Every time Sarah brushed off a question, every time she changed the subject, his suspicion grew. He tried to remind himself she had been nothing but kind. She was good with Lily better than he'd ever expected. She laughed with her, helped her with homework, even taught her to play a few notes on the dusty keyboard Jack had shoved in the corner years ago. The sound of music filled the house again, clumsy and sweet, with Lily giggling every time she hit the wrong note. Sarah's laughter joined hers, soft and unguarded. One evening, Jack leaned against the doorway, listening. His chest ached, but then he remembered the black car, the expense of groceries, the phone calls late at night, whispered words he couldn't catch. Who was she really? That Sunday, Sarah offered to take Lily to the park while Jack worked on the truck in the driveway. He watched them walk down the sidewalk, Sarah holding Lily's hand, their laughter carrying back in the breeze. For a moment, Jack felt something warm stir in his chest. Then he pushed it down, because strangers didn't belong in his heart, and Sarah, no matter how many smiles she gave, no matter how happy she made Lily, was still a stranger with secrets. That night, as Jack lay in bed, he thought about Lily's words from earlier. Sarah says I'm good at piano. She says I could play beautiful songs one day. Jack had smiled. But when Lily turned away, the smile faded, because as much as he wanted to believe Sarah's kindness was simple, something in his gut told him it wasn't, and Jack Turner had learned to trust his gut. For now, he let it go, but deep down, he knew the truth would come out eventually, and when it did, it might break the fragile peace Sarah had brought into their lives. The week started like any other work, school, bills stacked on the table, but it ended with a storm Jack hadn't seen coming. It began with a phone call from the school. Mr. Turner, the secretary's voice came through the crackling line. I think you should know, Lily was upset today. Some girls teased her about her shoes. Jack's hand tightened around the receiver. He glanced at the boots by the door, the scuffed sneakers Lily wore almost every day. Thank you, he said tightly, hanging up. His jaw ached from how hard he clenched it. When he walked into the house that evening, Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table with Lily. The little girl's cheeks were blotchy, her rabbit clutched tightly to her chest. Jack's chest burned. What happened, baby girl? Lily's eyes filled again. They said my shoes are ugly. They laughed at me. Jack's throat went dry. He crouched beside her, brushing her hair back gently. Don't listen to them. You're perfect. You hear me? Lily nodded, but her lip trembled. Sarah's eyes were soft with sympathy. She's a sweet girl, Jack. Kids can be cruel. He stood, anger boiling under his skin. She shouldn't have to feel less than anyone because of shoes. Sarah hesitated, then said, I can fix this. Jack frowned. What do you mean? But she didn't answer. The next day, when Jack picked Lily up from school, she came running out with a smile on her face and brand new sneakers on her feet. White, clean, shining like something from a store window. Daddy, look, she exclaimed, holding up her foot. Sarah got them for me. Aren't they pretty? Jack froze. When they got home, he found Sarah in the kitchen, unpacking groceries again. The receipts sat on the counter, the numbers bold and heavy. The shoes far more expensive than anything he would have bought sat in the bag by the door. Sarah, Jack said, his voice low. She looked up, uncertain. She needed them. Jack, you saw how hurt she was. He stepped closer, his tone sharp. That's not your call to make. She was crying. Sarah said softly, I couldn't just. You went behind my back, Jack snapped. Sarah flinched at the force in his voice, but her chin lifted. I was helping. I don't need your help. His words came out like thunder. We don't need your charity. The air between them crackled with tension. Sarah's voice shook, but she didn't back down. It wasn't charity. It was kindness. There's a difference. Jack slammed his hand against the counter, the sound echoing through the small kitchen. You think you can just buy your way in here? What are you hiding? Sarah, you've got money for shoes, groceries, whatever you want, but you live like a student with 2 bags to your name. Who are you really? Her face paled. For a moment, she looked like a cornered animal. Then she whispered, I told you I'm just a student. You're lying. Silence fell heavy. The clock ticked on the wall. Lily peeked around the corner, her eyes wide and scared. Daddy? She whispered. Jack's heart cracked, but his anger wouldn't let go. Go to your room, Lily. Tears welled in her eyes. But now, she ran off, clutching her rabbit. Jack turned back to Sarah. I don't let strangers play games with my daughter. If you're hiding something, you need to leave. Her eyes filled, but she shook her head, please. Jack, you don't understand. Then make me understand. Sarah's lips parted, but before she could speak, the roar of an engine pulled into the driveway. Jack glanced through the window and froze. A black car, sleek and polished, sat gleaming under the porch light. A man in a suit stepped out, tall and sharp-eyed. Another followed. Sarah's face drained of color. Jack's chest tightened. What the hell is this? The door opened before Sarah could answer. Miss Sarah, the man said, his tone respectful but firm, your father sent us. Jack's stomach dropped. Father? Sarah's voice trembled. I told you not to come here. The man's eyes flicked to Jack. He's worried. You've been gone too long. Jack's jaw clenched. He looked from the expensive car to the polished shoes of the men standing in his modest living room, then to Sarah, whose hands shook as she clutched the edge of the table. You're no ordinary student, he said, his voice low. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Jack, please. He stepped back, his world tilting, his daughter asleep in the next room, strangers in suits in his house, and the girl he'd let into their lives standing there with secrets spilling from her silence. Jack's voice was harsh, but his heart was breaking. Get out. Sarah, get out before you hurt her more. Sarah's breath caught, but she didn't argue. She turned, her bag slung over her shoulder, her eyes shimmering with tears. As she stepped into the night, Jack's chest burned with anger at her, at himself, at the hole she was about to leave in Lily's heart, and somewhere deep inside, though he wouldn't admit it, at the thought that he might have just pushed away the one person who had brought light back into their home. The house felt empty without Sarah. Jack tried to tell himself it was better this way, safer, no more secrets, no more strangers with shiny cars showing up at his doorstep. But as he moved through the quiet rooms, something inside him ached. Lily noticed too. Where's Sarah? She asked the next morning, her small voice breaking the silence at the breakfast table. Jack stirred his coffee. She had to leave. Why? He hesitated. Because she had things she didn't tell us. Lily frowned, but she's nice. She made the house happy. Jack's throat tightened. He forced a rough smile. We'll be okay, kiddo. We always are. But later, when Lily went to school, Jack found himself standing at Sarah's empty room, the bed neatly made, the faint smell of her shampoo lingering in the air. He felt like a fool. 2 days later, he got an unexpected knock on the door. When Jack opened it, Sarah stood there, not in her usual jeans and hoodie, but in a simple dress, her hair tied back neatly. Behind her, the same black sedan idled by the curb, the suited driver waiting. Jack's jaw hardened. You shouldn't be here. Sarah's eyes pleaded, please. Jack, just let me explain. He started to close the door, but her words rushed out. My name is Sarah Whitmore. The name hit him like a slap. Everyone in town knew it. Whitmore, the billionaire real estate mogul whose face was plastered on magazines, whose company owned half the city skyline. Sarah swallowed hard. He's my father. Jack froze. I didn't want you to know, she said quickly, because people treat me differently when they do. They either want something from me, or they push me away. Her voice cracked. I just wanted a normal place. A home that wasn't full of lies and rules. Jack's chest tightened. So you lied instead. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I didn't lie about who I am with Lily, or with you. That part was real. He wanted to believe her, God help him, part of him already did, but his pride burned hot. You don't understand what it's like, he said roughly, scraping by, counting every dollar, trying to give your kid the world when you can barely afford new shoes. You can't just swoop in with your money and, I wasn't trying to buy you, Sarah interrupted, her voice firm despite the tears. I was trying to help because I know what it feels like to have everything and still feel like you have nothing. Jack blinked. Sarah's shoulders sagged. My dad gave me cars, clothes, trips, but he never gave me his time. I'd trade every dollar for one night of him tucking me in the way you do for Lily. Jack's breath caught. For the first time, he saw not the billionaire's daughter, but the lonely young woman standing on his porch. Her heart bared. Behind him, a small voice spoke. Sarah. Lily stood in the hallway, her rabbit dangling from her hand. Her eyes lit up. You came back. Sarah's face broke into a trembling smile. I couldn't stay away, sweetheart. Lily ran into her arms, hugging her tightly. Jack's chest ached. His daughter's happiness was so pure, so simple, and here he was, stuck between pride and forgiveness. He cleared his throat. Lily, go wash up for bed. She pouted. But now, baby girl. With a sigh, Lily trudged off, leaving Sarah and Jack alone again. The silence between them was thick. I'll go if you want me to, Sarah whispered, but I needed you to know the truth. I never meant to hurt you, or Lily. Jack rubbed a hand over his face. He wanted to shut the door, to end it clean, but the image of Lily's smile when she saw Sarah, the sound of her laughter in Sarah's company, kept him rooted. Truth is, he said finally, his voice low, you already did hurt us. Sarah's face crumpled. Jack's eyes softened despite himself. But I don't think you meant to. For the first time in days. Her breath eased. They stood there, two people from worlds apart, bound by a little girl's joy and the fragile thread of something neither had asked for. Jack wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet, but he also wasn't ready to let her go. And Sarah, for the first time in her life, felt like maybe she'd found a place where her name didn't matter. Later that night, when Lily was asleep, Jack sat on the porch. Sarah joined him, a blanket draped around her shoulders. You should know, she said quietly. My father won't stop looking for me. He thinks he knows what's best. But I needed to prove to myself I could make it on my own. That I wasn't just his daughter. Jack studied her profile in the moonlight. Strong, but fragile. Brave, but scared. He sighed. You pick one hell of a place to land. Sarah smiled faintly. Maybe it was the right place. Jack didn't answer, but for the first time, he didn't want her to leave. The next week, the quiet street where Jack lived got its first taste of wealth. The black sedan didn't just return, it brought company. One Saturday morning, Jack opened the door to find not one but 3 luxury cars lined up at the curb. Men in suits moved with quiet precision, scanning the yard, their polished shoes stepping carefully over cracks in the sidewalk. And in the center of it all stood a tall man in a navy coat, his silver hair combed back, his presence commanding like someone who'd never been told no in his life. Jack didn't need an introduction. Mr. Whitmore, he said flatly. The man's sharp eyes studied him. You must be Jack Turner. His tone carried polite disdain, like he'd already weighed Jack and found him lacking. Before Jack could reply, Sarah stepped out from behind her father. She looked different, her shoulders stiff, her voice tight. Dad, please. Not here. Whitmore ignored her. His gaze swept over the modest house, the rusty pickup in the driveway, the cracked paint on the porch. His jaw tightened. This is where you've been living? He asked Sarah. Yes, she said, her voice trembling but firm. And I was fine. Whitmore's eyes snapped back to Jack. Fine. In a place like this. With him? Jack's fists curled. With me. You mean the man who actually gave her space to breathe? The air between them thickened. Lily's voice broke the tension. Sarah. She ran out the door, her rabbit flopping at her side. Sarah crouched, catching her in a tight hug. For a moment, her father's commanding presence faltered. Whitmore watched, his lips pressing into a thin line. This is the little girl you mentioned? Sarah stiffened. Her name is Lily. Whitmore gave a short nod, but his eyes never softened. To him, Lily was a footnote, not the heart of the home. Jack saw it, and it made his blood boil. Inside, the 4 of them sat around Jack's worn dining table. The suited men waited outside, their shadows looming through the curtains. Whitmore folded his hands neatly. Sarah, your little adventure ends today. You've had your fun, but it's time to come home. Sarah's jaw set. This is my home. His eyes flashed. Nonsense. You belong with your family, with me. Jack couldn't stay quiet. She's not a child. Whitmore, she gets to choose. Whitmore turned to him, his voice dripping with superiority. And what do you know about choice? Mr. Turner, you scrape by on a mechanic's wages. You rent out a room to strangers just to pay your bills. You think that qualifies you to guide her? Jack's chest burned, but his voice was steady. It qualifies me to know what real life looks like. Sarah's eyes flicked between them, tears threatening. Whitmore leaned back, his tone like ice. You filled her head with nonsense, but I won't let you drag her down with you. Jack shot to his feet. She's not the one I'm worried about dragging people down. Lily flinched at the sharpness in his voice. She tugged at Sarah's sleeve. Why's he so mean? Sarah hugged her close, whispering, It's okay, sweetheart. But it wasn't okay. The air buzzed with tension. To men locked in a battle that was about more than Sarah, it was about pride, love, and the worlds they came from. Finally, Sarah stood. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. I'm not leaving, Dad. Not like this. I came here because I wanted to find something real, and I did. She glanced at Jack, then down at Lily in her arms. This family may not have much, but they gave me more than all your money ever did. Whitmore's jaw tightened. Sarah, no. She cut him off, her tone stronger now. You can't buy love. You can't buy trust. And you can't buy me. The room went silent. Jack stared at her, stunned by her courage. For the first time, he saw not just a lonely girl who'd knocked on his door, but a woman standing up to the man who'd shaped her whole life. Whitmore rose, his eyes cold. If you walk away from me, Sarah, don't expect to walk back. Sarah's chin trembled, but she didn't waver. Maybe that's the price of being free. With a sharp motion, he turned and left. The men in suits followed him, their polished shoes clicking against the floorboards. Moments later, the roar of engines faded down the street. The house was still. Sarah collapsed into a chair, her hands shaking. Jack wanted to say something, anything, but Lily got there first. Don't cry, Sarah, she said softly, patting her arm. You still have us. Sarah let out a shaky laugh, tears spilling anyway. She pulled Lily close, pressing her forehead against the little girl's hair. Jack looked at them, his heart heavy. His pride told him to keep distance, to guard himself, but his eyes told him the truth. Sarah had chosen them, chosen him, and that mattered more than all the money in the world. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Sarah stood on the porch, staring out at the quiet street. Jack joined her, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. You stood up to him, he said quietly. Sarah gave a faint smile. For once, Jack nodded slowly. That took guts. She looked at him, her eyes searching. Do you think less of me for not telling you sooner? Jack's chest ached. He wanted to say yes, to hold onto his anger, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he said, I think you've got more to you than I gave you credit for. Her breath caught, her lips parting in surprise, and for the first time, the distance between them felt smaller. Autumn settled in slowly, painting the trees gold and scattering leaves across the little yard. Jack Turner raked them into piles on Saturday mornings, while Lily leapt into them, squealing with laughter. Sarah always came out to help, though more leaves ended up in Lily's hair than in the trash bags. Life wasn't perfect, but for the first time in a long time, it felt steady. Whitmore hadn't returned. Weeks passed with no black sedans on the street, no men in suits hovering at the curb. Jack knew it wasn't over, not really, but for now, the quiet was enough. Sarah stayed. She cooked, studied, helped Lily with homework, and filled the house with something Jack hadn't realized he'd been missing: warmth. Still, Jack kept his guard up. He told himself it was for Lily's sake, that he couldn't let his daughter get too attached again, but deep down, he knew it was also for himself, because every time Sarah laughed, every time she brushed a stray curl from Lily's forehead or smiled across the dinner table, something in Jack's chest softened, and that scared him more than anything. One evening, after Lily was in bed, Sarah found Jack in the garage. He was bent over the hood of an old truck, grease staining his hands. You worked too hard, she said softly, leaning against the doorway. Jack didn't look up. That's what keeps this place standing. She stepped closer. It doesn't have to be just you anymore. The wrench in his hand stilled. He looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't just a scared girl who had shown up with 2 bags. She was stronger now, clearer. And she wasn't asking to take over, she was asking to stand beside him. His chest tightened. I don't know how to let someone in without messing it up. Sarah's voice was steady. Then we figure it out, together. Jack's throat ached. He set the wrench down, wiping his hands on a rag. Why us? Sarah, you could have anything, anyone. Why choose this? She stepped closer, her eyes shining. Because this is real, because Lily laughs here, because you don't look at me and see a last name, you see me. That's worth more than all the money in the world. For a long moment, Jack said nothing. Then, slowly, he reached out, his callous hand brushing hers, and for the first time, he didn't pull away. The next morning, Lily bounded into the kitchen, her eyes bright. Daddy, Sarah says we can have a family game night tonight. Can we? Jack glanced at Sarah, who smiled nervously. He cleared his throat. Yeah, kiddo, we can. That night, they sat on the floor with a worn deck of cards and a pile of popcorn. Lily laughed until her sides hurt, Sarah's smile never fading, and Jack, watching them both, felt something he hadn't in years: peace. Weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was embossed with the Whitmore seal. Jack's gut tightened as he opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper bore carefully chosen words. If Sarah has chosen you, then I will not stand in her way. Take care of her. R. Whitmore. Jack folded the paper slowly, his jaw tight. Sarah found him staring at it, her eyes widening. He wrote to you. Looks like it. Jack handed it over. She read it, her expression unreadable. Then she set it down gently. That's his way of letting go. It's not perfect, but it's something. Jack nodded. Guess it means this is really home now. Her eyes softened. It always was. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep with her rabbit tucked under her chin, Jack and Sarah stood in the doorway watching her breathe peacefully. She's happy, Sarah whispered. Yeah, Jack said, his voice low. She is. Sarah looked up at him. So are you. Jack met her gaze, for the first time in a long time. He didn't deny it. I think I am. Slowly, he reached for her hand again. She laced her fingers through his, and in that quiet, simple moment, Jack realized something he hadn't dared to believe. Love had found its way back into his home, and this time, he wasn't going to let it go.